Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture.
The wayward son has returned, Jody. The wayward son is here.
We don't have the rights to that music, so please don't
that belongs
say
to Tony Khan, apparently.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Currently, yes.
There you go.
Welcome again to NPR.
Listen to the dulcet tones
Welcome
of
to
Brady Davis.
Welcome to neutered podcasting.
And nobody
recon.
else is going to say their name.
No.
So we're just going to keep going with this until it gets really annoying. Or is everybody who's listening to this really annoyed by this right now? Because
the new tone of the new
to
podcast.
be honest, am getting quite annoyed
If
with
you're annoyed,
this.
if you're annoyed by
2.0.
this, if you're annoyed by this, email us at travelersontheomnibus
Yes.
gmail.com. That's
Yes,
one
please-
L. Travelers on the
Please
Omnibus.
do that. See, we got that out of
I'm
the way
Jody Kite. Hi.
early on.
I am James McCarthy.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
Oh, the other one's back too.
Oh,
Yep.
God.
Jesus
We
Christ.
are a Q obligatory.
You-
Eminem, guess who's back? Back again.
You replaced
Ethan
the
and Brady's
replacements.
back. Tell a friend.
We are back.
Guess who's back?
Three
Guess who's
Yinglings
back?
like puts you in a
Guess who's
depressive
back?
mood.
Guess
Like-
who's back? No, my
Yeah.
job puts me in a depressive
Oh.
state.
Oh, what's the name of that
he's
job?
really back.
Yeah,
Censored.
There we go.
Fuck
There
you.
we go.
I drove all the way to Jackson
A second
to be more
time.
confused. Yeah, a second time
be
to be
more
more confused than
confused.
I was when I left. Appreciate that. Man, I really hope that other place calls me back from that interview. So I missed some things. Y'all have missed some things from me. I would be nice and kick it to Ethan since he also missed last week, but fuck it. I'm talking about my shit.
Yeah. Feels like I never left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you never did.
yeah, there was this big hate-shaped hole that was not being able to be filled.
What is the shape of hate?
I feel like it's just one of those like angry spike balls that just rolls around everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'll name it. It's the world's sorriest maze. Think about that for a minute.
That is funny.
There you go.
So yeah, so while I was gone, the week before I went to see some family in Brookhaven, and while they had already had some plans for that day, so I had the night free. So I went to the Brookhaven Cineplex. That seems like too strong of a word.
Okay.
And watched Wakanda Forever.
Oh, okay.
So as everybody knows, and if you don't, you should. Black Panther is one of my favorite superheroes. I was actually starting to like get quite a bit of Marvel fatigue, and I was like, I'm not gonna watch this. It's not gonna be. And then the first trailer came out, and I was like, fuck, I have to watch this now. Yeah.
They always get you.
I don't know if anybody else has watched it. I really enjoyed it. It's not perfect. There are some things that I didn't like that kind of stepped on some things, but I think overall it was a very good movie. Although I did watch it in what is possibly my worst theater experience ever.
Ooh.
So this was a 4-screen theater
Okay.
that looked like it was falling apart.
Oh, Lord.
So you know how nowadays when we go into a theater around here on the coast, you walk in and you have to like climb up some stairs, and you have these nice, sort of kind of nice. Some of them are falling apart.
Lounge chairs.
but lounge chairs that you can recline and everything. No.
Bucket seats, huh?
This you walked down a hill
Oh, God.
to your seat. So wherever you were sitting, unless you were sitting in the very back, you had to look up at the screen.
Oh.
And it had the flip up seats.
The
That were
old
very
bucket seats.
very close together.
Tiny
so when
and close
all
together.
the people behind me decided that they were going to talk through most of the movie, and I'll get over with that. It felt like they were like right on the back of my neck. Also in the front rows were like 4 or 5 children that decided they were just going to get up literally every 5 minutes. It was atrocious. That being said, through almost the entire movie, these people were talking and everybody was loud and everybody was getting up. There were 2 moments where the theater was stock silent, and it was at the very beginning when they showed the Marvel tribute for Chadwick Boseman. They go through the Marvel logo and everything. You know how it flips through.
The Marvel intro.
Yeah, and it's all Chadwick Boseman, and there's no music. And then at the very end, there's a moment where Shuri is sitting on a beach and she's burning a very important thing. I'm not going to give all that away. And she's sitting there looking very like she's remembering, and then it cuts to Chadwick Boseman, and there's no music. And during both of those moments, the theater froze, like they were into this. So like that shows you how like those were the two moments that I probably ever come closest to crying at a Marvel movie. I thought the addition of Namor and their version of Atlantis, Talokan, was very good. Like that is a very interesting way to say it, to like interpret that.
And if I may say, quick shout out to Tenoch Huerta, who played
Oh,
Namor.
he was
Fantastic.
so good.
Super
He
fantastic.
was so good. Like he was standing up to Angela Bassett. Like there's a moment where Angela Bassett and him like meet and talk, and like the menace that he gives off is so good. Like, and he does not cower towards Angela Bassett, who is like he goes toe to toe with her, and she's a phenomenal actress. Like, it was a really, really good movie.
From what I've seen, the Namor character really makes me want to watch this movie.
Namor,
On top
like
of
they did
else.
everything that I wanted them to do with Namor. Namor 1 should be an arrogant asshole. He was that. Namor should be barely ever wear clothes. He did that. Namor should. The only thing that he didn't do is Namor tries to fuck everything that moves. He didn't get to do that. That's the only down thing.
Well, he was fighting Wakanda.
Yeah, he was fighting Wakanda. He had some things on his mind. Well, no,
It was probably on the back
more
burner.
specifically, and this didn't happen because she's not in this movie. He should be trying to fuck Sue Storm every single chance that he gets. That's the big thing. I apologize. It was spot on to the. It was a good reinterpretation that still has like the soul of the character. Some of the other additions, the addition of Ironheart, Riri Williams, like I liked the character, but she wasn't really necessary. And then the Martin Freeman's character, like he needed to be in there, but the way he was added in there was very clumsy. But everything else about the movie I thought was great. There was a little bit less humor in things like that because
Understandable.
of course, it was mostly it was about two things: dealing with Talokan, the Atlantis thing, and dealing with the grief. Everybody dealing with grief. So there was less humor, but yeah, I still thoroughly enjoyed the movie.
At any point, did someone drink a Sprite or drive a Lexus?
I didn't see much much product placement.
Good deal.
So that was good.
Good deal.
Or if it happened, it was integrated enough that I didn't see it. So yeah.
I swear to God, if Atlantis is just filled with Sprite.
The ocean is just a big can of Sprite.
Yeah, they don't want our vibranium, they want our Sprite.
Yeah.
For the listeners who don't know what we're talking about, there's been several Wakanda
If you know what we're talking about, go back to our older episodes. Watch those.
They
Numbers, motherfuckers.
there's also some Black Panther Wakanda Forever tool sets that you can buy at Walmart. So if you want like a purple screwdriver,
Ethan, what have you been up to? I'm sorry for jumping that. We've hit the wall.
yeah,
We've hit a vibranium wall.
Walmart's Wakanda.
Hold
Forever.
on. I'm the one driving this ship.
Right, I had to pull the wheel at least a little bit. God damn it.
Yeah. Weird. So
Are they made of vibranium?
You didn't know that this boat can temporarily be a boat. Also, this bus.
Yes,
So,
it's an omnibus.
Yes.
So yeah.
It could be an omni boat if he
It's-
wants it.
Yeah.
It's just an Omni.
Yeah.
This is not a boat.
We make the
No, that
same-
was the old. That was the old Atlanta.
We make the same claims about our bus that Elon Musk makes about any kind of Tesla product.
He just
Yeah, Ethan, you can go ahead. There's nothing else that I want to talk about.
I
Sorry.
can go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. So a lot of things has happened. One, I got the flu, so yay.
Awesome.
Oh, that's boring. Nobody wants to hear about that shit.
Was Namor involved?
Unfortunately, Namor was not in my past 2 weeks.
All right, there you go.
Another thing, really quick. Several of the people who were Talokan, that movie that I talked about, La Llorona,
La Llorona, yeah.
they were in that movie
Oh,
as
very
well. Because there's a lot of like more native people. Like Talokan is all about like Mayan civilization,
they were going,
native people.
Yeah, they went Mesoamerican with it.
Yeah, it was-
which, again, like going back to our like the Lost City of Atlantis. That when we were talking about animation, like I like when Mesoamerican like art creeps into the Greek art because I think those two mesh extremely well together.
Yeah.
So that was.
I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was a very cool thing. There was a couple people. I was like, oh, I know this this actor. Oh, I know this actor. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead. Tell us about your flu and bullshit.
I got the flu. and then I realized scrolling through Facebook that unfortunately a voice actor that I very much enjoyed growing up, Kevin Conroy,
yes.
yeah, he passed away unfortunately.
Yep.
Voice of the Batman.
Yeah, my childhood is very quickly dying off.
So, spent a few days watching some old DC TV shows.
Yeah, I'd been rewatching Justice League from the beginning because I don't think I'd watched every single episode of the original. I watched Unlimited like a lot, but I was watching, and every time Batman comes on and speaks, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Yep.
I was sad to know that he doesn't voice Batman in Young Justice. It's a different guy, but I've been watching a lot of that. Batman Beyond, the original animated series.
The original animated series is the best for my personal.
he's got Kevin Conroy. He's got a like they did some anniversary thing. Oh, it was a Pride thing because he was talking about like his it was like an autobiographical comic or something that's coming out.
Cool.
It's either came out or is coming out. I cannot remember.
See, my disease-addled brain heard Pride. It's like he was in Pride Fighting Championships. Holy shit!
Yeah, he
Kevin Conroy's badass.
He voices the Batman. He has to be.
He kicked the shit out of Mirko Krokop.
But spent a few days doing that. I played some God of War. Still, I haven't finished it yet.
No, this is Ragnarok, right?
Yeah, God of War Ragnarok. Still love.
Oh
the
yeah,
game.
I picked up that too. It's pretty good so far.
Yeah. Spoilers. Atreus is a little shit.
Yeah.
So
I'm not
standard operating procedure.
Yeah, I'm
right
not
now, yeah.
too far into it.
I know what they're trying to do with the character, but it's just playing the game. I just want to punt the little shit.
Yeah, because he's an asshole that's raised by an emotionally stunted man. Like, of course he's gonna be a little shit.
Yeah.
But I like that they're furthering Kratos' like character.
Yeah,
He's starting to get like further away from his old God of War days.
Like Greek heritage.
Yeah.
He's trying to be a more compassionate
that's
man.
where. Yeah, I literally like almost not too far after getting back access to the Blades of Chaos, which is very early in the game. Like you get those very, very early.
I think it's like immediately after the Thor fight.
Yeah, I was trying not to give that away, but sure.
Oh, that was shown in the
that thing
trailers.
comes like
Yeah,
early
but
on.
I mean that it was a surprise to me, and I enjoyed that. Oh, you do this very quickly. Oh shit.
I like that Thor's a doughy fat fuck.
Yes,
I love
chubby
I
Thor.
love Thor.
Because like people were pissed about that, and it's like, come on now.
Yeah.
They're obviously doing something different than the Marvel aesthetic. So
And also more akin to the actual descriptions Thor given in Norse mythology.
yeah, Thor's just a big dude.
Yeah.
Like there weren't people who looked like Chris Hemsworth in the old Viking times. They were just fat people. Like if you were like, there weren't like super cut muscular because nobody cut water weight in.
No.
For those of you that aren't in this room right now, which is 8 billion of you, we have a live studio audience member. Her name is Winter Rouse, and she just gave the biggest stink eye sad face to Brady when she said that not everybody looked like Chris Hemsworth.
I'm gonna or Alexander Skarsgård from the Northman. Or Anya Taylor-Joy from the Northman. I'm gonna break some people. So you know how when like Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth or any of the other Chris's in your Marvel movies are really like cut and really like you can see all their abs and everything. You know how they got that? They didn't drink water for like a day before that and cut all of their and just like set in a steam bath to cut all their water weight to get really cut. They don't look like that all the time. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Their shits must have been like tar.
Yeah, probably.
They do exactly what UFC fighters do before a fight.
Yeah.
They do the exact same thing.
Yeah, they didn't have abs.
Is that a defense mechanism in the UFC? Like you're getting your ass beat, you
I
just
guess
shit
so.
tar on your opponent, and
It's
it's
just it becomes
and
a
then
projectile.
There you go.
I don't know. Did CM Punk actually shit when he got beat in the UFC? Possibly. I think somebody has shit in.
I know.
I'm positive
I
someone
know
has shit
why
in the
you
octagon.
shit on CM Punk. But, and I'm the king of just like pulling shit out of fucking thin air. See, shitting tar, but it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
we didn't have to go there, but we did.
I don't know. We just watched an AEW Chicago show. Get off me. I'm
that is
sorry.
true.
Continue. We got into a long ass tangent.
Yes.
Ethan, please.
Tell everyone how you beat Pokemon Scarlet. Yeah.
I am not good at this hosting thing. Why did I say I would do this?
All four of us aren't good at this. You put us.
Some are better than others.
If you put the four of of us
Some
together.
of us are we're all equal, but some of us are more equal than others. Didn't think you'd get an Animal Farm reference tonight,
There you
huh?
go. No, see, for me, that's more of a Supreme Court reference because all the justices of the Supreme Court are supposed to have equal authority, except for the Chief Justice,
Oh, you
who is
pulling out your lawyer
yeah, who's
bullshit.
first among equals.
There
you go.
I'm not gonna say that.
So yeah,
Fucking say it! I'll fucking you. He beat Pokemon
Yeah.
Scarlet in 4
beat
days.
Scarlet.
not
4 days.
Not 4 days.
So you took a break from God of War Ragnarok, probably one of the best games of the year, to play Pokemon Scarlet.
yes,
Sure.
but I beat it today. Came out. I got it at midnight last week.
But Brady, there's 150 different Pokemon than there was in the last game.
I thought you were about to say that I got it last night and you just beat the game. That was fucking amazing.
I'm impressed if you did.
As much as I like the Pokemon series, there is a lot of things wrong with this game.
Well, I'll be honest. I'm giving you shit, but like I am notorious for picking up and putting down a game.
Yes.
Like I bought Tunic 3 weeks ago and I haven't played it in like a week. So like
a month ago, I was talking about Mass Effect.
I
dropped that as soon as God of
yeah,
War came out.
I kept meaning to ask you about that, but I knew the answer to that. But yeah, so it's just a matter of time before I drop God of War Ragnarok. I'm already like not playing it that much.
Well, fortunately, with me finishing Pokemon, I'll get back to God of War. But one of the biggest complaints that I have about the game, it doesn't feel like it's a finished game. Imagine
This is Pokemon, right?
This is Pokemon Scarlet. Imagine day one release of Cyberpunk 2077.
Jesus fucking Christ!
That's a
Yes.
bold statement
Yeah,
because
you
I had
couldn't
Cyberpunk on
play
day
it,
one.
right?
No,
It's
it was playable.
It's a step above it, but it's
Okay.
still. It feels like an unfinished
How
game.
do you half release
So-
a Pokemon game? It's
Because
like you just
have-
add
well,
like
my-
2 features. Like
No,
what the-
and like 100 new Pokemon every time.
okay, like sure.
even with them cutting the amount, like I believe the total number of Pokemon is over 1,000 now. The game only has 400.
Only.
But that's going to change because I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be
There's-
Pokemon
there's-
packs that you got to
there's-
buy.
there's
that
gonna
make
be
them
DLCs.
huntable.
Jesus fucking
There's
Christ.
going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
DLCs.
Oof.
My thing is, I think with as big as they wanted to make the game, is making it so laggy and glitchy. Like one of the things that people were really excited for was that this was an open world mainline Pokemon game because they tried experimenting with Pokemon Legends Arceus with an open world, but it wasn't part of the mainline. It was like a spin-off of the franchise, and everyone loved Legends Arceus. So whenever they're comparing Scarlet and Violet to Arceus is way above it. Like the graphics are alright, but they're very much lackluster. You walk 5 steps forward, and then boom, hey, there's a shit ton of Pokemon around you when it wasn't there like 5 seconds ago.
I will say in open world games, you can make the map too big.
Yes.
A bigger map does not mean a better game. It is better to have a smaller map that is filled with things for the people to do than to just have a map so large that either glitches or it's just a wasteland. Like
The best thing I can compare the map to is the map in Skyrim. Like if I did not have a Pokemon mount to get around everywhere, I still would be playing the game. I wouldn't even be finished. I'd probably be like halfway through just walking.
oh, okay.
So it's just, I know I said I liked like big maps and open wilderness, but there is a thing called too big.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the game. I found out where all the budget for the entire game went in the final 10 minutes of the game.
Oh, okay.
With cutscenes and the battle graphics specifically for the last 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But I enjoyed the game. I'm ready to get back to God of War.
As you hook the people with that final 10 minutes. You just got to make it through that other 20 hours, and then that last 10 minutes is
That's
really
like Final
shit.
Fantasy 13. You got to play like
You have
for
to- you have to
20
play
hours, and then you get to the open world part of the game.
Yeah, but then you can't really still do the open world thing
No.
because
Yeah.
trust me, I played that and I had a because I'm okay with like using guides and shit like that, and the guide just kept saying, okay, you're here and it's all open. Just run through this because there's so many things that you can't. Like it just kept saying until you beat the game, you really can't do anything here. the fights and the fighting system I liked a lot, especially like the last, like the big boss fights.
The stagger system they
were
had.
really good, and it was very interesting without you like picking like every single thing that you do, but knowing when you switch everybody's roll up and everything like that was very good, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I can't tell you one goddamn thing that happens in the story.
Well, yeah,
I could barely name. I could. Gun to my head, I probably couldn't name 5 characters.
There's like 4 different groups that have like almost the same name.
Yeah, and I could maybe 2 main bad guys.
I can remember.
I can tell you the final boss, and that's
Right.
about it. And one other guy, I'm not sure if his name. Like, it just doesn't stick.
I remember Lightning, Sarah, and Hope. That's the only characters I can actually remember. Snow. I think a good, for me, a good representation of open world sandbox, as far as like, not too large, is like the first Red Dead Redemption. I like that size of open world, and also Skyrim. It's fine, but you have to have fast travel.
You have to have fast
in
travel. You
Skyrim.
have to have a mount,
But
otherwise you won't even finish.
You
the
have to
game.
have a mount in Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
If you don't fast travel.
Well, I like things like Red Dead Redemption. I didn't play it as much as I really wanted to. Because it was kind of daunting, but the fact that that's like it slowly opens the world to you.
Yeah.
My problem with games like Skyrim or Fallout 4 is or Fallout 3 is the specific one that I played, is when you get to a certain point and you get to the open world and they're like, here,
They give you
walk in
everything at once.
walk in a direction and find out, and it's like, oh shit, fuck. So I play like an hour or 2, and then like I'm done because I'm so overwhelmed with because like something happens where I get ADHD and I just like
Breath of the Wild did it the best for me as far as that goes, because they start you with a postage stamp section of the world.
Yeah.
And then once you break out of that, then you have like the true experience.
Yeah, they set you up.
But
for
you've
that.
already had time to kind of, okay, I like to do these things.
Yeah, you get
let
used
me
to the
find more
systems.
of these things to do.
That's what they did to
and on that little island thing, like you feel like, oh, this is humongous. Like, how am I going? And by the time you actually get there, you're like, oh, I can handle this. Like, like that's good.
Like, I was still in the tutorial when they gave me the Great Beyond. I spent
That's way too early.
I spent 2 hours exploring everything before I eventually got back to the main story.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I know. I'm happy I'm going back to God of War, but I unfortunately know I'm gonna be going back to it to fill the Pokedex and get the DLC whenever it releases.
The only thing about God of War,
catch them all.
the only thing about God of War that annoys me is that it's during Fimbulwinter. So while I'm playing it, I just feel like, God damn it, this is making me feel cold. What the fuck? Like,
Thank you, Sony, for releasing it during the winter.
yeah. Well, we got our 2 weeks of winter, I guess.
We'll get it in the spring
It's
sometime
currently
around March.
We're gonna go
it's 54 degrees now, but during the day it was like
74.
75 degrees with the heat index in the autumn. What the fuck in South Mississippi? Good God.
Gotta love it.
But yeah, that's all I've been up to.
Yeah. Jay, what you been up to?
The Steam sales have started, especially the autumn sale has started.
Yeah, I got some notifications about that.
I am
Looking forward to those.
I am considering getting Tekken 7 complete, which is like all 4 season passes, which is because I've already got all of Soul Calibur 6, and I kind of would like Tekken 7. I know 8's dropping next year, I would imagine, but it's still something I wouldn't mind picking up on the computer. I picked up, like I mentioned last week, I picked up Civ 6. Sid Meier, maybe top 3 video game designer of all time for me. Like just when the stuff he makes and
those simulation games are
especially like with how complex 4X games are, and he's not a solo designer, obviously.
Well,
he's
of course
doing it by
not.
himself, but the teams he puts together to put these out are just absolutely
And he's been good
fantastic
for a
games.
really long time.
Yeah, like I don't know of no, I take that back. I know of one bad Sid Meier game, and that's Beyond Earth, which sucks because they recut the trailer for that game to Final Countdown. It's like one of my favorite non-canon game trailers of all time. But that one was more of a disappointment for me because I had played Alpha Centauri as a kid, and Alpha Centauri was just so good. If you know the YouTuber Mandalore Gaming, I highly recommend his review of Alpha Centauri. I actually picked that up also this week on GOG because it had the complete edition of that for $1.50.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so, GOG is a pretty good site sometimes.
Yeah, if you want to if you've lost the discs or the disc codes for like some of your old games. Go to GOG.
They have stuff.
And they do super deep discounts, especially with YouTube partners that they work with. I got the entire Thief series for I think like $10 because it was like $2 for Thief 1 and Thief 2 Gold, and it was like $8 for Thief 3. Thief Deadly Shadows, excuse me. But yeah. So I got those. Again, I'm thinking about getting Tekken. I'm not pulling the trigger yet on Jackbox 9 because I've got the first 8 Jackbox games. I do eventually want to pick up 9, but at $24 and we don't really play it as much as we used to.
Right.
It's something that can kind of sit on the
and
back
you can get
burner
enough random generated questions with the other 20 that you have. So
yeah.
You know.
I almost picked up the Game of Thrones board game version that they have on Steam for $10, which let me say this right now. I like the Game of Thrones board game. I think you could play it better online with a dedicated video game setup with
it.
And like, oh, we have to take a break now. Like for like a couple days, cool. Save the game. Everybody can come back and you're good to go because that game can get very long-winded. It's based off of Diplomacy, which is a game that that could take 11 hours or several months if you played by mail, not email, mail,
snail mail.
Oh, yep.
Here's an apocryphal story. No, it's not apocryphal. This is confirmed by the people who play this game. There was a game of Diplomacy where the letters would come into one player and then he would disseminate them out to everybody else, but he was also a player in the game. So he opens up and he steams it open. He doesn't rip the fucking envelope. He steams the thing open and the guy says, I am not moving. I will not take these 3 cities. Or no, I will not move to take these 3 cities. I am not pushing forward. He retypes the letter, finds the exact same typewriter that types the exact same way, and retypes the letter, I am taking these 3 cities. I am not stopping on this way. And then sends that letter out in the original envelope, which he re-steamed closed. This is how crazy these people get.
That is hardcore cheating.
That
right
is
there.
hardcore. Hardcore. So yeah, so Diplomacy. If you're an asshole, there you go. I'm trying to think if there's any other. It's mostly been a video game buy-in spree for the most part.
Oh yeah, Jody, what have you been doing?
Oh shit. Oh yeah, I've been doing stuff. So I recently finished part 2 of my musical by the Digital Devil. It's on.
What's it called?
It's called The 7 Friendly Sins of the Lord of Undead. That's part 2. Which is on Anchor and Spotify. And there's a poll actually on the Anchor site of questions that I've asked the audience if they want to, what would you like for me to do next? Also, I'm going to start posting on socials under either the Digital Devil or the Fearology podcast, and actually probably it's going to eventually be just the Fearology podcast on all the different socials and things like that. So I'm going to start self-promotion, and hopefully if I get my shit together,
Jay, just a reminder, cut that out and put that at the end. This isn't the time for that.
Fair.
Are you not looking at him because you'll slap him? Is that the reason there?
Look. I'm gonna steal his thunder for a second. Brady bleeds for bits on this show, and I'm not going to take that away from him, considering how shit his job is.
Yeah.
Where do you work?
Yeah.
Censored.
Okay, that was just censored. So
Censored.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I get my shit together, hopefully soon, I will be on Fiverr myself.
Oh.
Doing atmospheric work in the horror genre of music to see if anybody wants to hire me for like short films and things like that to do music production or something in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you like the intro and outro clips for this podcast, those were made by Jody Kite.
Yeah, and the intro for Philology, if you've listened to any of the shows that have an actual intro on them, is also something I've done. And the musical, most of that is like new wave pop music, and it's not what I actually do most of the time. I just wrote a musical and I was trying to put it out there. So I have something out there that I've done, and I put it out there in the ether. Regardless of it being good or not, it's worth the price of free. Yeah. So, there are no guarantees for how long it's going to stay up on Spotify for free. If something works out to where I can actually get something out of it, I'm going to get something out of it at some point in the future.
If you do something good, you should be paid for it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So so that's what I've been up to.
Well, here's hoping you get your shit together, Jody.
Thanks, man.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
Long pause.
Yeah. What's the next part?
Yeah.
Where can they find us?
You're the host. Figure it out. We'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Trevor's on the
Omnibus. Yeah. So far, Trevor's on the Omnibus.
Yeah, you get a 38-minute slice of life instead of our actual topic. It's great.
So Jay, you're the one who usually tells us where we can find this podcast. Tell us.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for being passengers on our omnibus. If you would like to bring along some friends to be passengers as well, you can catch us on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Anchor, as we like to call it, Saga.
Yeah.
Jody, what else can they do as far as getting in touch?
Oh, yeah, Jody, where
you
else
can message us directly on Spotify, and I think we have polls on there or something.
Take part in our polls and questions on Spotify. And
our polls actually matter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unlike some other
They're
ones.
the only polls that matter.
That's a political joke.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, but yeah. And if you'd like to discuss politics with us, Travelers on the Omnibus
yes.
at gmail.com.
I guarantee that I will not read that.
Yeah,
and Jay will have to.
I will read it. I do like to read from the passengers, see what they're all about, see what's going on with it. But again, that's Travelers 1L on the Omnibus at gmail.com, which brings us to...
Jay, do we have any... I don't know. Does anybody felt like they had to tell us their opinions?
Oh, yeah. An opinion was shared.
So is it a strong opinion?
So
yes.
if you remember from last week, there was a next time find out what Brady thinks.
Yeah.
Brady,
foreshadowing.
there was some pointed feedback at you. From one Kevin Galla, a.k.a. Ronan Roosta, a.k.a. Kevin Gallo on YouTube, Ronan Roosta on Twitch. So he wrote me feedback. If you guys want to talk fighting games, get someone who knows them. Brady's comments are very worthy of scrub quotes. That's part Ethan dying of the plague and part laughing at that statement. My response back, remind me of this quote again next week because Brady's out of town for this podcast session, which last week, if you didn't catch, was a very good one on RPG War Stories. Also, and I hate to put work on you, referencing Kevin, which episode are you referencing, or is this a reaction to several episodes? Kevin, most recent specifically, there was a conversation about difficulty of fighting games, but there were some a while ago about Amingo and his existence from Jody, but I'm not really concerned about that. He might have had a stroke. Kevin, were you stroking? But then the final part, Brady's this week was about how old fighting games have weird timings and stuff, and it's just him being a scrub. Brady Davis, the floor is yours.
A stroke might explain some of those comments, but that's neither here nor there. So, Kevin, can I call you Kevin? Yeah. So your memory might be a little off because if I'm correct, my brain is scrambled. But what I was referencing was the fact that if you play like a more modern game, even something as to us that would be old, such as like a Soul Calibur or something like that from a Dreamcast, or like something from like the GameCube, or I'm thinking of a Soul Calibur 2, or like the PlayStation 2 era. There's a smoothness and a what's the word that I'm looking for?
I would go with refinement if I may jump in here.
It's
flow.
Well, not even that. A responsiveness.
Okay.
When I press a button, it immediately does X, whatever it is. When
latency,
I put in a button,
latency. Yeah.
When I put in a combination. So when you go back, Try Kevin, do this. Try and find you. Don't download an emulator or anything. Try and find an old Sega Genesis or an old Super Nintendo or something like that, and go play some of those old games. Even something that was as good as like a Street Fighter. Play Street Fighter 2, not
original 2.
And then try and go on there and press buttons and see how slow things go. And it was because of the technology. It was because of like the graphics. I'm not saying they couldn't handle it, but it was just like things were slower and the latency was not as responsive as what you get from there. That's what I was talking about. I wasn't talking about that like the game so it makes timing when you're trying to press more than one button at a time, or when you're trying to do a sequence of things, it makes it a little bit off. That's what I was saying. When you get used to newer games that have that smoothness and being able to do that, and then you go back in time, even especially try this with something like Weapon Lord. That's one that or the original Samurai Showdown, where they move. It's almost like they're moving in molasses, because you're used to even like a Street Fighter 3 or something like that.
Virtual Fighter. Yeah. The first Virtual Fighter is one of the slowest fighting games, and even on the arcade, and also, it is like molasses.
Not only that, and it's also floaty. Like
very floaty.
Everybody in that game can almost jump over everybody else in this like really slow moon bounce.
Compare original Mortal Kombat 1 to Ultimate K3.
Yeah,
3K.
Do something like that.
Yeah.
If I
I played the Mortal Kombat Sweat edition on the Super Nintendo because my cousin had it, and like going back to that after playing something, and it's the same with anything. Most games, it is very rare. Like I can go back and play like Super Mario World, and it's just as smooth as like a newer thing. But that's a rare thing. A lot of platformers, when you go back to them, there is like a responsiveness problem with that, and it's because the technology just isn't there, the processor. I'm sorry, Ethan, go ahead and give your 2 cents.
If I can put my own like comparison into the mix, I've spent many hours playing Smash Brothers Ultimate for the Switch, and recently I was trying to play Melee with some of the guys up here at McNubb Gaming.
Correct.
I don't like the response time with the GameCube controllers.
It's different.
It's much slower than what I'm used to on the Switch. You have to be very precise on the button timing, with also reaction speeds. Is very difficult going from a newer generation game back to an older one.
All right, let me ask this question: is it that you have to be more precise, or is it that the timings are different?
More precise.
I think the timing. I think both actually.
Because I remember, because I played the ever living shit out of Melee, and then going to Brawl, I was like, this feels weird. This looks like the same game, but it feels weird. So even something close to like that can be there. There's a big difference. Now, I also want to address. Okay, Kevin, I have never once acted like I know, like I'm good at fighting games. I think I can hold my own with a couple of people in this room at Soul Calibur, that particular game. I lose way more times than I win. Jody waxes my ass with Sophitia most of the time. Jay with Mitsurugi most of the time. I can kind of beat him sometimes. A lot of times.
You've been kicking my ass lately, though, man.
I don't play.
You found Astroth, and that ratio.
We had a good
differed.
I've only ever I won one round, one match, and is it match or
you won the match?
You perfected me that one game.
Yeah, I was very proud of that. But I'm not. So growing up, fighting games were one of my favorite genres. I loved them, but I'm also not very good at them, and I don't play them quite as much as I used to. Like I have Soul Calibur 6, but I only play it every once in a while because I just don't have the time nor the attention span to just sit there and get good at the game. And it's like that with every fighting game out there. I enjoy these games and I love playing them,
right?
But I'm just never going to sit there and practice, mainly because it's kind of boring practicing against like AI and shit like that, and I don't usually have another person to play with. I'm not real big on playing online because I'm just gonna go on there and get my ass whacked and not want to play it anymore.
Is it wrong for me to want to categorize like fighting games as somewhat party games?
They can be. They're in that.
It's much better with like a small group of friends playing the game
in the widest. In the
join us next week for Kevin's response to Ethan.
Yeah, he's gonna shit on you.
Before it became an esport,
in the broadest definition of a party game, you can say that, but like you have to like broaden it out quite a bit. Also, Smash Brothers is a party game. Smash Bros is not a hardcore fighting game. Let me play it with items and fucking on different maps that aren't just
maps
one
with
plane.
hazards.
Yeah, let me play on a fucking map that moves. Goddamn. That's why I don't play Super Smash Brothers anymore.
The bridge.
There's your
just
fucking hot take.
Back when Aladdin's Castle was a thing down here on the coast, back when
they had one of those in Laurel.
It was. I will say this: like especially Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. Those are the two I remember originally and religiously. That was Quarter Coliseum. You got there. There was a line. You got your quarter. You put it on the sill, and you just waited in line, and it got to you. Then
because people challenged all the time. Yeah, there's a game I'm going to mention right now, and if you want to like get really good at a game that has no combos, play Time Killers.
Jesus, I don't even know that game.
Interjection. Alien Challenges.
Well, that's Alien Challenge is the thing.
Alien Challenge.
So yeah.
Kevin Gallo, Brady Davis challenges you to a game of Alien Challenge this December at J Moss.
No, that game is not even funny to watch anymore. We've kind of killed that one, in my opinion.
No, I will always laugh at that Alien Challenge.
Okay,
I will always laugh.
Kevin
at
Gallo,
Good for you.
Ethan Skinner challenges you to a game of Alien Challenge at J Moss.
But yeah, I hold no illusion that I am actually good at fighting games. I enjoy playing them sometimes, and there's a specific one like everybody else on this podcast will attest. When they are playing Street Fighter Third Strike, I don't play it because I'm just not that good at it. I'm not good at any of the characters.
I'm not good at 4, but I'm good at Third Strike. I can't play 4 for shit.
Yeah. So but it's because I just don't have the attention span.
Right.
If I'm playing a game, I need to be playing through like a continuous story or something like that, or moving forward or something like that. I can't just sit there and practice. I did find out that I'm pretty solid at Soul Calibur 6, stone ass drunk, but
nice.
So, but that's neither here nor there, and I didn't have a fun time afterwards.
Well, that's because of the hangover.
Well, no, it wasn't even the hangover. It was just being miserable as a drunk. So, yeah, Kevin, sure, if you want to call me a scrub, fine. I don't give a shit. Yeah, just have fun playing whatever fucking fighting game you play. Sure. I'm sure you're great at it.
You should have a tournament of Primal Rage and have a good time. And not the arcade version. No. Sega Genesis.
Yeah,
Primal Rage.
Because that was also like I think a 4-button fighting game, and Genesis still only had 3 buttons, and so you had to hold a button down to make the other functions of the other buttons work.
Yeah.
Something I just thought of when I was sickly with the flu, I was watching a lot of Killer Instinct videos. That looks entertaining to watch, and it kind of wanted me to want to play it, but unfortunately I think it's an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I remember,
we don't go ahead, Brady.
I remember watching my like playing Killer Instinct and then watching my brother play Killer Instinct and him being like better at than me, but I think the early Killer Instinct was a lot of like button mashing, and you could just
it was some combos for sure.
It wasn't so much button mashing as it was you had a so what. Real quick, going back into the history of fighting games. Comboing in fighting games starts in Street Fighter 2, and it starts as a glitch because moves would cancel before their time if you hit the proper button. And they were looking to get rid of it. And then one of the designers went, "You're fucking nuts. This is fun. Like, this is fun to be able to just bam, 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 like that." And so, like, that's where combos are born.
Yeah.
Killer Instinct was like, we're just going to code the combos into the game. So you start out with this, and then if you follow directly with this,
the inputs,
then you have a link move, which then is followed by another move in the chain, and you could take this on to like 12 and 13 hits.
Yeah.
Of course, then you have to then have the combo breaker move, because if somebody could just hit you 13 times over and over again, that becomes a very fast, unfun fight for everybody.
Yeah, but like I still remember like watching my brother do like an ultra combo with TJ combo and like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever.
And that game came out like about the same time Mortal Kombat 2 came out, and really the only combo was it 3?
Mortal Kombat 3 was out alongside with that one.
Gotcha. Well, Mortal Kombat 2, like the only like quote unquote combos you could do were like 3 move combos within the game.
The first Killer Instinct was like on the Super Nintendo, and Mortal Kombat 3 was
on the PS1.
Yeah, it was on the PS1. So,
but anyway,
the timing might be off on that, but whatever.
Mortal Kombat 3 also was on the Super Nintendo.
Oh, okay.
It was a much shittier port than the PS1.
Was it Trilogy? It was just Trilogy, right?
I think it was just Mortal Kombat 3.
No,
Trilogy was the one on the 64.
Oh, okay. And the PS1.
Trilogy also came out. No, yeah, Trilogy also came out on the PlayStation because I had that one. It was the one. They gave you all the fighters.
Yeah.
Already unlocked.
Because I think the MK3 didn't have Scorpion,
Yeah.
which to me is a death knell of a Mortal Kombat
Right.
game.
Yeah, you didn't have Scorpion, you didn't have Mask Sub-Zero, like most of them you had the Cyber Ninjas.
Right.
Like, there was a lot of changes in that.
I like ketchup and mustard.
But you got Striker. You want to play a cop? You want to play a cop?
Dude, there's
started
nothing,
with a K.
Nothing more annoying than someone who
starts with an S. It just has a K in it.
There's nothing more annoying than
you don't spell striker striker.
Cop with a K.
They did not spell make his job.
That's the joke. Is that Mortal Kombat? They change all the C's to K's. God damn.
No. Here's how hard that joke hits. I thought you were being serious.
Jesus Christ.
That they spelled cop with a K.
I'll have to write on our thing joke and then hold it up so everybody knows.
It's Poe's law. Everything that you don't say is parody. Apparently, isn't parody.
Joke. There we go. So I have that ready.
Clarification.
So from now on, I can hold it up. That this is a joke. Okay, everybody sees that. Y'all don't see that because this is an audio medium.
Yes. Or they do.
For now.
Or they do, and we're being broadcast to superheroes.
Do we have anybody else wanting to shit on us, our opinions or anything like that?
I just think they just wanted to shit on you and now Ethan. And Ethan is now going to fight Kevin in Alien Challenge.
Yeah, sure, fine.
Kevin, I look forward to your next email.
Oh, that's very
man.
Interesting.
We have I don't know the
I don't know what your email is going to be, but I look forward to it.
The boy is getting
rambunctious.
Antsy.
Yeah, he's getting quite getting quite rambunctious.
Yes. Don't let him pick Steve Arena.
He took a week off, so now he's gotten
built up energy.
He's built up energy.
Yeah, he built up energy fighting the flu.
I will say I am like 3 monsters down.
Jesus.
Fuck your pancreas.
Just today.
And your heart.
Today.
Good God, man. Your heart is going to die.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was passenger feedback. Again, thank you very much, one and all.
So we decided on today's main topic because with the advent of Marvel movies and taking over most of cinema nowadays, and the DCEU attempting to do the same, sometimes failing, most of the time failing, sometimes you get a good one. Most people, when they talk about comic books, you think about superheroes. But there's an entire world of comic books that don't have anything to do with superheroes, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about not really the history, but just some of our favorite non-superhero comic books. And, you know, some of the things that we'll be talking about is some of the history, because comic books didn't start out with superheroes. That wasn't the first thing. If I'm not mistaken, it was kind of like crime and horror stuff for the most part.
I think the
sci-fi things and stuff like that.
Well, I think pulp came later, but it originated as just comic strips in newspaper magazines. Yeah. And then someone decided to start making comics, and it was mostly funny comics and stuff like that. I think that's what it started.
Yeah. So, so the history of comic books doesn't always have superheroes in it, and that didn't come until Superman and Batman.
I think Superman is.
I know Superman was before Batman.
Yeah, he's not maybe the absolute first, but he's the one that sets the archetype for everything.
Yeah,
else.
Yeah. If you do,
and I mean, even that. Let's start with early Batman. Batman's not a superhero. Batman is a person who's avenging, his parents, by dressing up as a bat to scare people and solve crimes as the world's greatest detective. Like,
yeah, and sometimes kill people.
And sometimes literally like shoot people while they sleep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of both non-super and non-heroic about Batman in the early going.
Yeah. Well, even at a lot of times, there were in a lot of ways, Superman wasn't near as super as he was. Like he could leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Yeah, that was literal. That was literal. Yeah,
right.
Like there's literally, I remember the first. I had like an anthology of comics, and they had like some superhero comics and some non-superhero comics, stuff like there were DuckTales and things like that. And they had like the first like Superman comics in there, and he was like scaring a guy by like holding him and running down a fucking
Are you
electrical wire.
Are you
stroking? I might be stroking shit.
Yes, there you go.
Please cut this to make me not look like
I will
I'm
cut
losing my shit.
5 seconds, leaving 8 seconds.
God damn it.
There you go.
Oh well, I'll never listen to this.
What are you worried about? You only listen to the thing when you're not on it.
Yeah, I'm certain. Never mind. I'm not gonna say that. So he was running down some not telephone poles, but electrical wires. Shit.
Yes. You literally just said that. You are stroking. Somebody find where the toast is.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. It's too late. I only had 3 beers.
And they were Yinglings.
Yeah, black and tans, baby. So he was running, and he kept mentioning that I have to jump over and some of this was like old comics, but I have to jump over the actual pole, because if I touch that, it grounds and I'm actually going to like get shocked. So Superman was like afraid of actually getting shocked. He was bulletproof, but he wasn't like invincible.
Yeah. He initially was supposed to fly. Siegel and Schuster, produced him as flying, and it was the editors go, no one's going to believe this. That's why. That's why it's like you will believe a man can fly. That's the reason why that statement becomes
okay. But
Superman parlance. This non-superhero talk is just amazing.
Yeah. We got off topic. So anyway, besides all that, we're not talking about all that shit, even though we just did for like 5 minutes. 4 of that is because I couldn't remember a word. So
what was the word?
I still don't remember.
Still don't remember. There you go.
So who wants to start off with something that they would like to talk about?
I kind of want to say something real quick.
Sure, you can. I'll allow it.
Thank you, host.
You're welcome.
He forgot your name. Am
I not magnanimous?
I didn't know you could catch stroke. Fuck.
Thank you, host.
I'm hoping by the end of this, we're all just gibbering puddles.
I bought a 6-pack of Guinness. I haven't opened a single one, and already I'm feeling woozy.
So, trying to like look for a non-superhero comic was kind of difficult for me, because all my life I've only known superhero comics: Marvel, DC, Iron Man.
Yeah, it's
Spider-Man.
it's especially nowadays, it's in the zeitgeist. So like this is the main thing that's being pushed.
And so I had a lot of difficulties, and then one of the things that came to mind was Netflix. They had the Umbrella Academy, but unfortunately that's under the superhero trope. The superhero umbrella, if you could say.
I would say those are they're definitely not like Marvel or DC, like your traditional superheroes, but it is kind of in that. But they do explore things that aren't.
Some of them have mutant like powers, like from the X-Men.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what the Umbrella Academy is. But they do like explore things that aren't normally explored in most Marvel, DC superhero comics.
And then I started going back to our past conversations. And
do you know who writes the Umbrella Academy?
I know I listened to a podcast talking about it.
Your mind's about to get broken. I'm just saying that right now.
Gerard Way.
Yeah, the
lead singer of My Chemical Romance.
That I did know. I just can't remember the guy's name. I was shocked when I first heard it though.
I was shocked when I saw how much weight he'd put on. I'm not saying that to fat shame him. I didn't think his body could handle that.
Yeah. A lot happens when you stop doing drugs.
Well, recently, apparently he started back allegedly. Because well, he's lost a lot of weight again because like My Chemical
Well, they're
Romance
about to go back on tour.
Well,
right?
they're touring again. Like you
okay.
can find clips on YouTube.
Maybe he just got active again.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that was it. I don't know. Sure.
But I mean,
yeah.
like, it was more like this is a completely night and day different person almost. Like it was crazy to me.
But yeah, continue, Ethan.
I was going back to some of our past conversations, and Neil Gaiman had come up a lot.
Yes, Neil Gaiman. I know of him.
And
I call him Gaiman because that's how I first heard it, and I can't unshake that.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
And I started looking into some of his stuff, and a show that a good friend of mine, shout out to Nicholas Krebs, introduced me to American Gods. And I didn't know that he wrote the comics that it was based on. And
well, he wrote the book, and then they made a comic.
The book and then the comics,
I saved you from an email. You're welcome.
Sorry, Kevin, for your eventual.
Kevin doesn't read.
Probably not.
There you go.
That's
Kevin. I apologize for that. Like that one was out of left field. My apologies.
It's not
Gerard Way's still fat. Anyway.
Allegedly,
he was allegedly fat. What if it was a bodysuit the whole time and he was just fucking with us?
Maybe, I don't know. He's a weird motherfucker.
But American Gods, I haven't looked into the comics yet. But
I will say, like, so I have all of those volumes, and a lot of Neil Gaiman's. He and we'll get to some of the stuff that's originally just comics that we talked about. We'll definitely talk about those. But a lot of his books were eventually either he made them or they were made into comics. American Gods is pretty. I was talking to friend of the show Holder, Jason Holder, about this. It's pretty much just the book in comic book form. They don't skip over anything. They don't change anything. The art style takes a little bit of getting used to. I kind of liked it, but it did take me a little bit of time to get into it, and it could just be that I really liked the story of American Gods. So I looked past that, but it is very weird art style. But it's good. I liked it. But also, like, Stardust was made into a comic. That's a book of his. Norse mythology. He did a book of Norse mythology, and that was made into like a 2-volume graphic novel. Several of his short stories have been made. How to Talk to Girls at Parties was made into a comic, and there's even like you can go to, maybe not now because like their comic book sections are like shrinking very quickly, but like Barnes and Nobles or Books a Million, there's like a Neil Gaiman compendium where it's got like all of like the shorter comics of his works.
Is that the stuff he did for Dark Horse primarily?
It's a lot of like How to Talk to Girls at Parties is in that. Like some of the shorter like the I think some of it's stuff that he did that was like original that are short, like maybe 1 or 2 issues, and then some of the stuff that was like his shorter things that were made into books and short stories that were made into comics. Because I'd seen it a while back and I thought about getting it. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff of his. I think that's a good segue into the big one that I definitely wanted to talk about, and that is his magnum opus. I think Sandman. This was made, but started in 1989. He finished it up the 75th issue in 1996. Neil Gaiman was the writer, and then Sam Keith and Mike Dringenberg. I wanted to make sure that I give everybody their dues on this. Help that like they all like created the characters together, like, you know. But this one came about because Gaiman was working with Dark Horse, and the head of it was like, hey, we want you to do something with an old like bringing back an old character. And there was a character.
Was it Dark Horse or was it DC through the Vertigo line?
DC, it's Vertigo. Yeah. I'm sorry. You said Dark Horse earlier and it stuck in my brain.
Also, Vertigo is going to be mentioned probably a couple times here.
Vertigo is one of the top ones for these non-superhero comics. She said, like, hey, we want you to do something. You can do whatever you want. You just have to base it. Like, you just have to have, like, it needs to be something bringing back this old character. So he looked back and he found this character called the Sandman, and it was just this dude who wore a fedora and a gas mask, and he had like a gun that shot sleeping gas at people, and he wore like this green tuxedo thing and a cape, I think. So he's like, I can do something with that. So he created the Sandman, which tells the story of basically the anthropomorphic being, like the anthropomorphic aspect of dream. Shit. I might actually be stroking shit. And he also has siblings that are members of this family called the Endless, where they came about when sentient life came about in the universe, and they will be around until the last sentient life dies in the universe. It starts off with the Sandman, also known as Morpheus, being captured for 60 years ish, 75-ish years. And then he escapes and has to reclaim his tools of power, and then also rebuild his kingdom. He rules over the dreaming, which is where all human beings go when they dream. So anytime that you dream, you go to this place and you experience it, and then you leave. So there's all kind of fanciful things. The dreaming is very mutable. When Gaiman was asked, like, he was basically asked, like, what is a sentence describing the Sandman? And he answered it as, the Lord of Dreams discovers that he must change or die, and he makes his choice. So it's all about, the idea of change. It's one of my favorite comics ever because there's so much in it. Every storyline is like so vastly different than the other one. They explore such interesting things. It's filled with these little one-shots in between. Like, there's overarching stories, but then there's these little one-shots that tell beautiful stories. There's a story where Morpheus made a deal with Shakespeare, to where he gave Shakespeare the power to give men dreams, but he said, okay, you have to do 2 plays for me. And one of the plays that he had him write was for the Fae people, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and he had them perform it on a hill for the entirety of Fae. Like, Fae came into the real world and sat there and watched him play, and he talked with King Oberon and Queen Titania about it while it was going on, and they interacted with them and everything. That one actually won an award. I can't remember, but like there's these little stories in with everything, but there's also these great characters that he creates. So yeah, I know, Ethan, you haven't read Sandman, right?
No. It's one of those things I know I'm eventually going to get around to. Mm-hmm. It's just timing.
Yeah.
And all that.
It's very, very good. There's
hearing a lot of praise come from you, Jody, Jay, Holder, Michael.
There's aspects of horror. There's aspects of fantasy.
And I know there's the Netflix show.
The Netflix show is pretty good. I would always say like read the stuff first, but I don't think it's terrible if you watch it, if you watch the show, because the show is also very, very good.
Also, I think there's enough of a departure from the source material that the stories are still fresh if you go back to them.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, because there is a thing where when one like story arc ends, the next one just kind of begins abruptly, and they kind of smooth that over the two big storylines. They kind of make them kind of bleed a little bit easier into the other one. So yeah, but there's very interesting like things that will happen in the very beginning of in the first volume have a major effect in the like everything that happens to Dream is a consequence of his actions and his either ability or refusal to change. Like it's very, very interesting. So yeah, that's definitely one to check out. I don't know if anybody else has anything they want to say about Sandman.
Not Sandman specifically, but there is another comic character that originated as a comic strip, and it started in 1905, and it's Lil Nemo. which they turned into a movie in the 80s called Little Nemo and His Adventures in Slumberland.
Yeah, I used to watch that when I was little.
Where the original comics are really cool because it's very surrealistic stuff and like high fantasy. So Little Nemo, while he's dreaming, experiences all these adventures, and like every week he would wake up from his adventure, but like unlike normal dreaming, like he continues that dream, like throughout like a story arc. And it went on for like 15 or 20 years in newspapers and things of that nature. And it's really cool if you like especially if you like art from that time period, Edwardian kind of artwork and steampunk before steampunk was really a thing, because it was during that time period of still like industrialism and stuff like that still carrying on, but really cool stuff, Little Nemo.
Yeah, I loved the movie as a child. In fact, I even like found the like a DVD of it and still have it.
I have a DVD of it, yeah.
And I remember I've also like read a thing where like they had some of the comic strips up there and they were very interesting. You can see like, because one of the big things in the movie is the bed like grows legs and like starts walking, and I remember seeing a comic strip where that happens as well.
Speaking of Sandman has characters from other DC Vertigo properties and DC.
Sandman
proper.
takes place in the DC universe.
Right.
Like you meet John Constantine. I'm American, so I'm going to say that, not Constantine.
Right.
Fuck you, Alan Moore. Shots fired. It's okay. That old man doesn't do anything because he's a wizard.
Hello, I'm Alan Moore. I heard you, Brady.
It doesn't.
I'm coming for you.
I hate everything because I'm Alan Moore.
Did Gaiman write for any of the Constantine comics at all? Do you know?
I don't believe so, but he did. But like I said, he did use the character. The only thing that he wrote that has connection to like someone like Alan Moore or anything like that was he did newer versions of Marvel, not Marvel Man. Miracle Man. And that's actually coming back, but that's a superhero thing that we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, so you see like during that you see like Martian Manhunter, but they're not like the focus.
Yeah, right. Superman appears in like 2 cells. I think.
Yeah, Superman is at the end and Batman is at the end at a big event. That's all I'll say. But they're very like the focus is never on them. So yeah, and even the people that he like closely like interacts with quite a bit, they're not big characters. They're lesser characters, or they're not superheroes. Like John Constantine's not a superhero. Mentioning that Hellblazer, that's another. He's not really a superhero in that.
Just out of curiosity, do we consider the Hellboy comics superhero?
It's very supernatural.
I do. And I think that's more of a muddling of seeing him on the big screen alongside X-Men. That kind of gets in the way of my thinking in that regard.
I can see that. I don't necessarily because like being superhero and non-superhero, having powers that I don't think makes you a superhero. There's like a lot of like, it's one of those things where I can't really necessarily like. I don't want to spend the whole time arguing about what is a superhero.
Right. I have a something I want to say about that whenever.
But like,
hell, let's say it now. Let's while the fruit is fresh.
Right, Ethan, did you know that The Crow was originally a comic book written in the early '80s?
I did.
And actually, like for me personally, the Crow, the character has abilities, but he's more of a vengeful spirit kind of thing. He's indestructible because he's dead. He's a ghost. Basically a walking ghost in flesh, but not really.
The Crow is kind of one of those things like I know of it, but I don't know anything about it.
Have you not seen the original movie?
I've seen like the beginning, the first 30-40 minutes of the movie.
No, but he saw The Crow with Tara Reid in it. He's watched that one extensive. No, I'm just picking.
They changed. I don't want to get on a diatribe, but they changed not a lot, but enough from the original comic to the movie.
Well, that's one of those like that. Men in Black was also a comic that before it was a before it was a
and
movie.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's Alan Moore. That was the thing where that was the movie where Alan Moore was like, he put his name on that and it was so bad, and he was like, I'm never allowing anybody to put my name on anything ever again when it comes to movies. But there was one recently that came out where he actually said like, okay, I'll put my name on this.
I see. If we're gonna go down that route, if we're gonna talk about Alan Moore, I want to talk like just very briefly about From Hell, which is one of the best Jack the Ripper stories ever. Which it doesn't focus on Jack, which is just amazing.
The graphic novel though, not the film.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The film is okay.
Underrated. I think that movie's underrated. I don't think it's bad.
No.
I just think there are better things in the genre.
I think if you read the graphic novel and then watched the movie, you're like
disappointed. I think they tried to make it too much like Seven and not enough like an actual Victorian era piece.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird. There was a 9 Inch Nails song on the soundtrack.
Seven kind of ruined crime dramas for a while.
Because it was too good.
Yeah, it was very good.
David Fincher, with the exception of like Alien 3, everything he's ever made was transcendent and amazing.
I haven't seen Mank, so I can't attest to that. But
Gone Girl surprised me with how good it was.
Yeah, From Hell.
Yeah, but From Hell.
From Hell's a great graphic novel.
Yeah, just the way he tells that story, and it feels like you're living in that era. Like Alan Moore, for what we've disrespected him on here, like he's very good at making a world you believe.
I will say this: I love Alan Moore, but he is a crotchety old bastard.
He is. No, that's 100%.
So yeah, who legitimately says he's a wizard? I'm not lying about that. Him and Grant Morrison, I believe, they're both wizards. I
like Grant Morrison, the person. I've never liked a single thing Grant Morrison has ever written.
There's a couple of things,
with the exception of The Invisibles. And that's
there are some things that Grant Morrison has done that I really like, but they're mostly superhero stuff. So, Alan Moore, he's also done. Has anybody ever heard of Lost Girls?
The name sounds familiar.
Why does that name sound familiar?
It's probably not for what you think it is. So
probably not.
It isn't for what you think it is. Go for it, man. This is all you.
Speaking of Alan Moore, that's not a superhero thing. So Alan Moore did a comic with his I think still, I don't know, I don't keep up with the man wife. She illustrated about, it was Wendy from Peter Pan, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, and one more. And it was them as adults talking about their sexual escapades when they were younger, not child younger, but like younger. It was it was a porn comic. There was porn in it. There was hardcore nudity and sex. So yeah. So that's a thing that Alan Moore did.
You don't want to get to the Goldilocks section.
Yeah. I cannot remember who the third one is, and I refuse to look it up. Kevin, send us an email telling us who.
Kevin, I need you to go on Google, not in incognito mode, and search out porn comics, and then tell us what you found.
Yeah. Write us a report.
Write us a report on that, Kevin Gallo.
Double spaced.
Like 500 book report this motherfucker.
Yeah, book report.
Goddamn.
Jesus Christ.
We need a guest section with Kevin and call it Kevin's Porn Comic Gallows. Oh my God, Kevin Porn Comic Gallows, because his last name's
Jesus
Gallo.
Christ.
Fucking great.
I know I like to do a little ombudsman work, or like do. I don't want to research this.
No.
That's why we're
look that up.
That's
Nah,
why.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
look it up
Bianca
right now.
will love that.
I'm good.
Look it up
I'm
on
good.
Bianca's phone.
Yeah.
Nah.
Sign into Bianca's Google
No.
so that it shows up
Go-
on all of her devices.
Go fucking.
No.
The first thing you find, make it her new desktop wallpaper.
Yeah. Make that her Chrome homepage.
Print them out. Leave them in conspicuous parts
Just
of
the
the
Google
building.
The Google non-safe search.
Yeah,
You guys really want me to be homeless, don't you?
yeah. Put them in spots like the kitchen, her front seat, the fire extinguisher.
Why wouldn't you want to be homeless?
You wouldn't have to worry about that tire no more.
Mississippi is so great for the homeless.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Why did this go political? We were
talking about graphic novels. Okay,
we were just teasing the boy, and then all of a sudden we're making political.
We were also shitting on Kevin Gallo. Don't forget that.
Jody had mentioned graphic novels, and it kind of gave me a flashback of middle school. I was reading a lot of James Patterson, and he had one of his book series turned into a graphic novel, Maximum Ride. From what I remember, it's like scientists are trying to genetically modify the human DNA to give us the ability of flight. And so there's this group of children who eventually have like angel like wings, and they're trying to run away from the laboratory that they were tested in. From what I remember, it was actually pretty good. They touched on a lot of adult themes. Mm-hmm. That's kind of something I very much enjoyed.
Okay, and that's one I've never heard of. Not really familiar with Patterson all that much.
I really liked a lot of his stuff in middle school, going into high school, but I think I kind of fell out of it a little bit.
Yeah. So I want to get to one that I really want to talk about, but really quick, I wanted to mention that kind of a spinoff of Sandman. Neil Gaiman created a version of Lucifer, of Satan. That was spun off into his own comic that took place after the Sandman, that was written by Mike Carey from 2000 to 2006. It's a very good comic. This has some interesting things that happen in it. So check that one out if you say read Sandman and then you really liked the character of Lucifer in that.
Is this the Lucifer that got the TV show?
Yes, it is basically the same thing, because in Sandman, Lucifer abdicates hell, like he gives up being the ruler of hell and just kind of does his own thing on Earth. Now in the comic, he doesn't start working for the for the police solving crimes and shit like that. But again, if you like that show, that's good.
When I think of,
I'm sorry, that was not that was sincere. I apologize. I meant for that to be sincere. I'm sorry that it came out as talking down to you. That was not my intention.
When I think of police procedural, I think of the Lord of Hell. Like, what the fuck?
People like it, and the dude seems like he's very good at it.
It's a very stark thing. Like, you have to kind of grasp.
But it is like they take the basic premise. Lucifer isn't the ruler of hell anymore, and then they do something else. Which, if you followed the comic, it would get super weird. So I understand it, because it does get really weird. Because there's no less than two separate universes that get created, that are separate from God's universe.
Oh, okay.
It gets really weird.
That's extra esoteric right there.
Yeah, it's a lot. But one of the ones that I really want to talk about, one of my other favorite non-superhero comics is a comic called Fables. Has anybody ever heard of this?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read any of it. I cannot
say I have.
So Fables does one of my favorite things that I love to read about, and that is, what if these stories, these nursery rhymes, these old fables existed in the real world. So basically, all of the fables and the nursery rhymes and all of these things, they have their own worlds, okay? But this being called the adversary is conquering all of them. So they have to basically run away to what they call the Mundy world, the mundane world, and kind of hide there as refugees. So it's them hiding in this. Some of them are in this certain area, Bullfinch Street in New York, and they have spells that hide them and everything. So you have the big bad wolf is Bigby Wolf. So he's the sheriff.
I played a Wolf Among Us. That's based off
the
of
Wolf
Fables.
Among Us. Yeah, the Wolf Among Us is great. That was my favorite Telltale game. They keep saying they're going to make a second one, but I don't know. But it's if you played that, it's
that's
this
in the
world.
Fables universe.
It's this world, and it's a very interesting world. So these people are having to, and it like combines things because so like Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk is also Jack Horner. So like it melds things together. We kind of think about this, but really it's separate. But like the Big Bad Wolf is the Big Bad Wolf in both. Is not just the Big Bad Wolf from the Three Little Pigs and from Red Riding Hood, but he's also where the idea of werewolves come from. So it does. Prince Charming is not just Snow White's Prince Charming. He's married. He was also the prince from
Sleeping
Beauty,
Cinderella.
So those are his 3 ex-wives.
Oh God.
So and he's a like a piece of shit like con man.
Okay.
So it's very gritty, and it's about them dealing with hiding in the real world, and then eventually it goes from there, but it brings in like Arthurian myth and all kinds of things, and like the Arabian Nights, they're their own world and things like that.
That sounds very interesting.
It is a very good comic.
You said it's Fables?
Fables, yes. It came back. It's 110 issues, 2002 to 2015. Bill Willingham and Mark Buckingham. Willingham was the guy who wrote it, and then Buckingham drew it. It's very, very interesting. It's really good. Don't look up the writers' opinions because you're not gonna like those.
Just like his entire. Don't look up anything that he's thinking about.
Yeah, but the books themselves, I recently reread them earlier this year, and they're very good. They hold up. It's great.
Does anyone want the Fables 20th anniversary box sets on Amazon for?
Let me guess, it's $199.
A little higher, $216.
Yeah.
Before taxes.
Yeah, I already have all the volumes, so I don't need that. But that's one that's coming back.
You can pay an
but I
extra
haven't read any of the newer
$10
stuff.
for release day delivery.
But yeah, so if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check that one out. So yeah.
I might actually do that.
Jody, you want to tell us about some
I'll talk about a couple of things. First, before I go into a deep dive on the super passionate ones, so there's some independent comics also from the 60s through the 80s. I'm going to actually kind of go backwards. There's these two brothers. They're called the Hernandez brothers. They started this comic book in 1981, 1982 called Love and Rockets. And it mostly follows. It's based in a fictional area of Los Angeles, and it follows characters Maggie and Hopi and some other characters, and it's day-to-day stuff. It's like mundane. It's like the adventures of just late teens doing late teen stuff. Spraying graffiti on the walls and getting in trouble for it, and so if you like interesting character work and things like that, and
basically like was it a Dazed and Confused or
American Splendor? I don't know if you've read any American Splendor, but it's kind of like it's got that kind of vein into American Splendor is a lot darker though. But Love and Rockets is really cool. They probably have a reissue of a couple of the graphic novels because the original comic ran from like 82 to 95, so that's a lot of issues. So I'm sure there's probably like 10 volumes of Love and Rockets, and also American Splendors. Also pretty cool. I never read Bone. I don't know. Jay, did you ever read any Bone comics?
I know of Bone. Never opened.
I read those. They used to have some of those in Disney Adventures, which was an old like Disney magazine. It was like a smaller it wasn't like a full-size magazine, but it was like you could get these little small booklets, and they would always have Disney comics in there, but Bone was also one of the ones that they had in there for some reason. I remember reading them then. I remember being frustrated because it's like, I want to read the entire story of this, but you're only giving me a little piece,
little clip,
and I only get one of these like once a month. So
what's up, Ethan?
I read this in middle school.
What's that?
Yeah.
Bone.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bone.
I did.
Yeah. I think it was a Scholastic book at one point. There was a couple of Scholastic books.
You said the name, and it like triggered like this repressed memory for some reason. I was like, hey, I remember. It's like this small little white
little white ghosty looking guy. Some other comics I read when I was mid teens was the Conan the Barbarian comics, which were magazine sized. Those are pretty awesome. I don't think there's any reissues of those, and they were pretty hardcore.
I can't remember if it was IDW or if it was Dark Horse, but there's been a more recent publishing of new. It's some of the old tales just redone with a different eye on the artwork. And I can't remember the name of the artist right now.
Right.
But I think it's some of the best Conan artwork I think I've ever
They
seen.
had there were two different Conan books. There was a Conan book that was like at one point put out by Marvel or one of the other bigger companies, maybe tied to the movie or came out during that. And then there was like the magazine size Conan, and it was in black and white, and that shit was fucking hardcore. There's like people, their guts were getting ripped out, and it's just like on the comic book shelf next to Archie. Yeah. And also another really hardcore, but in a different way, was I think it's called Nam, but I think it's like Nam 67, and it was also another magazine.
I've seen that.
Also extremely brutal. They didn't hide anything. Another magazine-sized comic book, which was a little bit more lighthearted than the horror fantasy, was Vampirella, which scantily clad, buxom brunette in the 70s, evil fighting evil kind of thing. And then there's EC Comics.
Okay.
Yeah. EC Comics, originally called Entertaining Comics. William Gaines, who took it over from his father, who was a comic strip artist that, according to William Gaines from the documentary Comic Book Confidential, created the comic book.
Okay.
That's what he claims anyway. He took a newspaper and folded it in half and goes, "Oh, I can just put my comic strips together in a book and sell that and actually make real money because newspapers didn't pay you shit for comic strips." But when his dad died, he took it over and created EC Comics, his was entertaining. His dad's was educational comics. That's what it was called originally. EC Comics, if you don't know, Tales from the Crypt is probably the most famous thing that came out of EC Comics, which was later adapted into a TV show for HBO and made into
Tales from the Crypt
multiple
cartoon
and a cartoon, multiple
I watched
movies.
The hell out of that cartoon.
A lot of people like Demon Knight. Not so much on the Bordello of Blood. But EC Comics, reason for a comic book code, because
and this I wanted to mention this.
Okay,
this is what led to superheroes being the predominant thing in comics,
right?
Because the comic code basically forced it to where you couldn't do like the old horror or the old crime comics anymore. Because
outside of just Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and Crypt of Terror, they had like 20 or 30 different lines. They had suspense stories, detective stories. They had weird fantasy and weird science. They had romance books, but there was a lot of implying of, in the romance books, they implied heavily on the romance.
Oh yeah, you can't do that with the comics code.
And in the horror, they would show some pretty graphic, horrific things, such as people's skin getting ripped off and being used for painting and things like that.
I know, like anytime that you would read anything about the comics code, they would always show the one. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I do remember it was like some monster or something holding a woman's head or something,
right?
And her eyes are rolled back. She's like blonde hair. So I remember that very vividly. Like every time you would read anything, they would always show that particular, and that was a cover of the comic.
I'll recant a quick story that they never really repurposed for anything for TV or movies from EC, from either Tales from Crypt, Vault, or Crypt or whatever. It's a story of a traveling salesman, and he's sailing. He's on the ocean. He is selling door to door a miracle diet pill. You take this one pill and you'll lose weight in a matter of days. Come to find out, he's selling a pill with a tapeworm in it. And so all these, people that are overweight and obese start losing weight, and you see a panel and it's like, Jim, you've lost 200 pounds in like less than a month. He's like, I feel great. And then 2 weeks later, he looks like a skeleton with skin on it. And so he forgets that he had been to a specific town, because he goes town to town. So he forgets that he had been in this town before, and he goes, oh no. And so, of course, all of the sons and daughters and the family members that have died from the tapeworm start chasing him, much like, Frankenstein with the pitchforks. He runs into a mausoleum, and he's hiding out in the mausoleum. Well, unbeknownst to him, one of his victims has been buried in this mausoleum, and all of a sudden you just see like this giant tapeworm explode through this corpse, and the frame you see is just his face full of terror. And that's one of the lighthearted, little spots in Tales from the Crypt. So
yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so these like that's why there was, like I said, that's why it went from, these were like the predominant thing, horror comics, like crime detective comics and things like that.
Right, because there was no age restriction.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's what DC stands for, Detective Comics, because that's what they used to do. But then the Comics Code pretty much forced everybody into this. We can only do certain things. We can't show blood. We can't show killing. We can't show, the bad guys have to lose, so they forced it. Also, we can't show like interracial kissing or anything like that. So it led to superheroes being like the thing,
which led to the underground comics of the mid to late 60s with Robert Crumb and Fritz the Cat.
Yeah, Fritz the Cat.
I've never. In the 70s, you have Metal Hurlant, and then the Transplant America Heavy Metal.
Yeah. Yeah,
heavy metal.
Mentioned heavy metal.
Heavy metal, and then France, who didn't give two shits about comic codes, had Barbarella, which was also pretty cool stuff there. If you ever look at any of the old Barbarella comics, those are pretty rad.
Another one I wanted to really quickly mention was a comic called Saga. This is an ongoing series. Like they kind of written by Brian K. Vaughan and drawn by Fiona Staples. The first like half of it was completed, so you can get like the entire first half in one volume, and that's what I did. The first 54 issues. I want to say he had taken a break for it for a while, but it's coming back. Either it's come back or it's coming back very soon. But this tells the story of these two warring planets. Like it's like a sci-fi universe of people. One planet has their beings with human being looking things with wings, and they're very technological. Then this other one, they have horns and they are very magical. And it's a civil war kind of fighting thing, and there's like these robotic things that are kind of pulling the strings of the war, and two soldiers from the war fall in love, and they have a baby, and they have to go on the run, because that means that they're going to kill the baby, and they're going to kill them for betraying each other, betraying either side. And it's just them dealing with all of the things, and it's a very, very good comic that goes to some really interesting places, and it does a lot of good. One of the things that I like, where they take a character that you hate, and you're like, oh my god, this person is, and they endear you to them. They actually like change and things like that. It's a very mature comic. Pretty much everyone that I've talked about they're all pretty mature. Just for the warning, but that's another one that I want.
You mentioned Brian K. Vaughan, so we have to mention Why the Last Man.
Oh yeah.
Which I was so disappointed in the ending of that.
I haven't read that one.
I'm not going to go.
I know
into
enough
that.
about it, but I never read it.
The premise is, one day, everything with a Y chromosome on Earth dies.
Yes.
And with the exception of one thing, a man by the name of Yorick and his pet monkey Ampersand. And it is their trek across the world to figure out what happened and how do you fix this apocalypse. Up until the very end, that story had me. It had me. Period. Just had me.
I've always heard very good things, and I've always been interested in reading it.
That is the most disappointing comic book I've ever read.
Yeah.
Not from I'm sorry the world ended up this way. No, I was sorry that the story ended the way it did.
So, this is kind of leading. Unless anybody else there's one more big one that I want.
I do want to hit a couple of things while I'm thinking about it. I mentioned Barbarella being a French comic, Mobius, and Jordowski, the Inkle.
Mobius in particular.
Yeah,
I think
Mobius.
for the subject, absolutely.
Mobius is
Jody,
the art.
I think you mean Morbius.
It's Morbin time.
Morbin time.
No,
we had to get that meme.
Mobius
Yeah, I know.
is the French
fantastic
artist.
modern French artist. Artist.
Yeah, Jordowski or Jordowski, Alejandro wrote the story for the Inkle, and Mobius did the artwork for it.
Oh, okay.
It's really good stuff. He also did a lot of the concept art for the Dune movie that didn't get made in the 70s, and also for The Fifth Element as well. So the concept art, if you like any of the designs for anything. And then I have to mention Japanese comics for a minute, because Junji Ito.
Definitely. Some weebs will get very mad at us if we didn't mention that. So that's good.
And someone please tell me if I'm wrong about this, both here now or later with our passengers. Japanese comic books, in particularly manga, it runs the entire gamut. Like you have slice of life.
You have a lot.
Oh, yeah. You have like just regular stories told in the art form that you just don't see in the United States, in Europe,
and unfortunately, that's not something that I'm not super familiar. I don't read a lot of manga. Although I will say a really quick mention. My favorite movie, Old Boy, started out as a Japanese manga. And I've read the first 4 volumes, but it is wildly different. It is basically just the premise is all that was taken for the movie.
So before we get into the serious topic, which I think we're about to,
I've got one. I've got one to sandwich in there.
Okay, all right. And I wanted Brady to borrow a book of mine.
Oh, okay.
And so.
We're at a live borrowing of Captain Harlock.
Captain Harlock, Space Pirate.
Yeah, I think I've watched. They made I know this was an older anime as well, but they did a more recent movie.
They did a movie in CGI, which was actually really good.
On that's
Netflix.
The one that I've watched.
But borrow that and tell me what you think about it. It's pretty good stuff.
Tell you what, let's make a promise to the passengers. 2 weeks from now, Brady's review of Captain Harlock. Maybe.
Volume 1.
It might take me less time than this.
Okay. Just want to give you enough
in the future.
Enough lead time.
Oh, really quick. Something that's ongoing that I'm reading right now is Lore Olympus.
Okay.
It's a retelling of the Persephone and Hades myth.
Oh.
It's a web comic. And you could probably but it's very beautifully drawn. It's a mix of modern stuff with old stuff as well. It goes kind of back and forth. The art style is very good because everybody is all the gods are vibrantly colored.
You put a link for that into the Traveler's Messenger because I would like to look into that.
Yeah, it's a good one. There's 3 volumes out now. It's a webcomic, so I think maybe you could look online and find more, but I haven't wanted to because I've wanted to get the books. You mentioned French comics real quick. Snowpiercer was actually a movie by Bong Joon-ho. Was a
Academy Award
that.
Academy Award winning.
3 times. He made the Oscars kiss, which is what everybody who wins 2 Oscars in one night should do. And then the M. Night Shyamalan movie Old was based off of a very he took a different direction. It was a French comic called Sandcastles, which was more about the Shyamalan went in a different direction because that book's more about the fragility of time and things like that, and how you don't know what you have until it's gone and things like that. So that's it. But yeah, Jay, you said you had one more.
Oh yeah.
Before we get into the
we love cyberpunk around here. As we did a whole episode on it and figuring out what was and what is and things like that. And I made the statement during that Cyberpunk Edge Runners is probably my media of the year, and I was thinking maybe this is probably my favorite cyberpunk story of all time. And then I was at the house and I looked at my bookshelf and I went, oh no, no, it's not. It's very close, but Transmetropolitan by Warren Ellis, art by Derek Robertson, and inking by Rodney Ramos throughout most of the run. I think the early run was another inker, but those are the three primaries on this. If you want to talk about a realized cyberpunk-style world, it takes place in the future. How far? We're not entirely sure. There's so much of it that seems so near future that it could be tomorrow, and then there's some stuff in there that is beyond what Star Trek was even considering. And it's an amazingly, again, the world is just so very well realized because it has those connections to both the now and the future to kind of keep you in the mundane, but then also kind of tantalize you with where we're going as far as humanity is going. It's one of those where the protagonist is in of himself not a hero, he isn't. Spider Jerusalem is one of... I come close to not even calling him an anti-hero because he's a misanthrope, and he engages in behavior that is so self-destructive and destructive of the people around him that he's almost oblivious to it in his search for the truth, capital T truth. It's just so that he's the last best hope for winning in the entirety of what he's going out for there. And I don't want to spoil most of it. I don't know if they still release it like this, but the first issue of the trade paper binding was the first three issues of it. It was initially under the Helix imprint that DC had, but DC folded that one, and it was the only book to survive the folding of it, and it then went over to Vertigo. And again, we've mentioned Vertigo here. Vertigo should be given a lot of now posthumous kind of applause for what it did for original stories that weren't in the superhero mold, that also weren't in the comics code. Well, even though the comics code was long since gone, but definitely would not have passed the
and there's a lot
code.
of short run comic series in there, like Saint Sinner and stuff like that.
Saint Sinner, 100 Bullets by Brian Azzarello is another one. There's so many things that Vertigo was responsible for doing stuff outside of the superhero comicdom. Also within the superhero comicdom, I would also be remiss if I didn't mention things like Planetary, also done by Warren Ellis, The Authority, done by Warren Ellis, Grant Morrison, and a number of authors, which basically took the JLA mythos and made it grittier and for a more 90s, early 2000s style, which can get borderline offensive, but is also very stark. And I think that's what saves it is the fact they're trying to tell a very stark message of everybody's playing self-interested. It's thank God, that Superman landed in Kansas with, effectively Quakers for parents. It's okay, thank God he has a view of the world that is not just about him, because when you don't have that, oh God, it could be very bad. But no, I want to again mention Transmetropolitan. It's my favorite comic book series of all time. Full stop. As far as that goes, as far as a collected volume.
Right.
And also just to give that shout out to Vertigo, which I think Why the Last Man was also under Vertigo. I think Fables may have also been under Vertigo as well.
Fables was.
There's so much good comic book wealth inside that imprint. I'm sorry it's gone, but for the time that it existed, it gave us
lightning in a bottle.
It gave us a lot. Well, no, almost 20 years.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah, almost 20 years.
Right.
It was their response to Image.
Speaking of Image, do we need to mention the Max or Baby?
Because
that's one that I can't. I've read one issue.
Well, no. What was?
And I didn't understand.
Who was the initial penciler on Sandman? Because he was also behind the Max.
Was he now?
Yes.
Was it Sam Keith?
Sam Keith. Sam Keith was the creator and full runner of the Max.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like if you think about
now that I'm thinking of, I can see that.
Think about that early artwork, and that's absolutely.
That's one of the few like Image comics that wasn't like superhero like. Even though Spawn's not quote unquote superhero, it's very close.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Oh, I would say it exists with at least 1 foot directly in the superhero.
Yeah.
But with Pitt and the Max and Wetware, they did have some lines, comic book lines that were not superhero related, but they had a lot of, if one superhero, very close.
Yeah.
Wildstar.
Absolutely.
So,
all right. So I guess now is the time.
We've been avoiding it.
We haven't been avoiding it.
Let me set a bit of a stage. So,
Okay.
1986. In the year 1986, as far as superhero comics goes, you get Batman Year One. You get Batman: The Dark Knight Return. Not The Dark Knight Returns. The Dark Knight.
Yeah, The Dark Knight Returns.
The Dark Knight Returns.
That's the first one.
The sequel series was Dark Knight Strikes Again. My bad. So The Dark Knight Returns. You have Crisis on Infinite Earths. There's another. You have The Watchmen. All of that in superhero comics.
And like Spider-Man's black suit right around that same time period. It was around 1986.
I think Secret Wars was the year before.
Okay.
I think that was 85.
Right.
Because DC saw what Secret Wars did and said,
Right.
we're going to do our own team up too, and also fix our continuity. Ha 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 ha. So you have all this going on in superherodom, and then also in 1986, you have a man by the name of Art Spiegelman who comes up with one of the most poignant comics ever written, and that is Mouse. And at this point, but Jody and Brady, you guys take the lead on this one because I've read it. And it's powerful, but I think you guys, like, especially for the episode, you went a little bit more into it than I did on this one.
Yeah, this is one I specifically around the same time. This is one that like I had always was like I need to get around to this. But man, it's kind of like reading. It is almost exactly like watching Schindler's List, where oh man, I know this is important and I need to read it, and then I finally decided to when this book started being banned in schools, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna at least buy this to, but then reading it is extremely powerful. So Mouse is the story of Art Spiegelman's father, basically. And Jay mentioned Jody because I recently loaned this out, my copy out to him of the 2 volumes. For him to read because he hadn't read it yet, and it's done with anthropomorphic animals. So all of the Jews in it are mice. All of the Nazis are cats. Americans are dogs. The Polish who aren't Jews are pigs.
Yeah.
French people are frogs. And it goes back and forth between. Because Art grew up having a very contentious relationship with his father. His mother committed suicide when he was young, and because of the way his father was in Nazi occupied Poland, and his mother and father were actually taken to Auschwitz. His father was in the main camp of Auschwitz, which was a work camp. His wife got sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau, which was the death camp. So there was 2. Not a lot of people know that Auschwitz was actually 2 different camps.
Right.
The one that you see, the pictures that you see of Auschwitz, where it says in German, the work will set you free. That is Auschwitz, the work camp. Now that doesn't mean that it was easier. They worked you to death and starved you. So like, I'm not lessening their experience in that, but one of them was specifically, this is where all the quote unquote showers are. And it's just, the story goes back and forth between the present day in the comics and the past of him pulling the story out of his father to understand him better. And it's all about dealing with that. So like, and there's also terrible things that happen. And the fact, and do not let the fact that it is that they're anthropomorphic animals, like it doesn't make it any easier to read or
not at all
or anything like this. It is a very, very stark, very harsh.
I would argue that there's more poignance to it. I do think making them animals. The idea that like Spiegelman's depictions in this are frank. Frank and stark. Like you see these things.
Yeah. He doesn't shy away from
Imagine
things.
an animal being treated that way. Now imagine that human beings treated other human beings in that way.
Yeah.
That kind of extrapolation into metaphor really makes that hit home.
Like there is 2 volumes. Like the first volume is mostly like the family dealing with being in Nazi occupied Poland and hiding and everything. And while you're reading that, you feel that anxiousness because you know what the outcome is. You know what the not reading it, you might not know, but you know what the possible outcome is, and you know what, if they get caught, what's going to happen.
Well, a lot of things like when you're like, even in Schindler's List, Schindler's List, of course, being probably one of the best visual representations of that time period, of that happening. Like during the actual war part of the war, all of this shit was going on with these people for years. It was slowly happening. Like at first, the Nazis get there and they're like, all right, well, at 6 o'clock you have to like go home. Yeah. And then it turns into, if you're over 80, we need you over here. And then it turns into, okay, well, if you want bread, now you have to have these coupons. If you don't, and it's a slow, like, bureaucratic add to like all of your daily routines where now you have to go home at 3. Now only certain people can work during certain time periods. And then you start like separating people, like, okay, now we're taking these old people on these trains.
Now you have this business and you were working in this business and this person owned this business. We're taking that business away from you.
Right.
And we're giving it to somebody else who's German.
If you're lucky, we might let you work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Early on.
Yeah.
The book, both the books, the story as a whole is probably one of the most depressing things I've ever read.
Yes, it is. Not a light read.
Not at all. And there's a lot of awful things that happen in the story, but there's like the little small things that really hit me hard. There's a point where there are different points in the story where when things got to a really bad point, they were hiding a lot. And there's a scene where Anja, his wife, that later on committed suicide after they got through the occupation. She's in an attic and she's like, I think the father's name is Vlajnik or something like that.
Something like that.
She's
Forgive us for any mispronunciation.
Anja's like, you brought food, and he pulls out something and he hands it to her, and he goes, no, I brought wood, and if you chew on it, it feels like we're eating food. That wrecked me.
Yeah. It's not a light read, but I also like Spiegelman isn't morose throughout it.
No, not at all.
Because it does, like I said, it flashes forward to him like struggling to understand his father because there is a disconnect between them.
He blames his father for his mother committing suicide. Yes. His father at the time during present day has had heart attacks, but he doesn't seem to be really fazed by it. Not the father, but the son. Art seems to be like, still talking to him like,
because his father has all these little quirks that, as you see, come from, the time that he spent in Auschwitz, and then also, in Nazi occupied Poland. Like it's, you start to understand like where these things come from. You don't necessarily like forgive everything because the father is a very like prickly person in his when he's older. Like you can see the change that happens. You can understand why the change happens, and it doesn't make you like necessarily because his father like says some like really messed up stuff to him when when he's when he's talking to him. But you do, like I said, come to understand him a little bit better,
right?
And you feel like, and you kind of go along with Spiegelman's journey of also understanding him.
When they recant the story of the pit where they threw people in, and some of them were still alive, and they poured gasoline on them and set them on fire. And then after the first group of people, after that happened, they scooped up the fat so that they could burn more people with the fat from the previous people. It's just, oh my God. It's so detailed. And it flashes forward to him on an exercise bike, chilling with his son, trying to do his daily routine. So I think that kind of like breaks up the just darkness of everything
if
that's
it was
happening.
Just that straight through, like you would be like, this is unreadable because I can't handle this much.
That, and also it's a representation of God God bless the survivors.
Right.
You had to go back to doing mundane, or you found yourself in a world where you're doing mundane things with other people, but you always have these memories in the back of your head.
Like all of your, like there's a scene where, they were talking about like, oh, that's your cousin over there. It's like, yeah, it's just everybody for themselves right now. Like you lost your family, not just to death, but also people were turning people over that were like family members just so that they could get away. And it just rips your heart out. Like all that. So much.
It does like lay those atrocities really bare. And it makes you confront them because like, they're anthropomorphic animals, but like you see, even though you're looking at mice being killed like this, like you can still see the humanity.
It is a very personalized detail of what happened from one perspective of someone who went through all of it, and you don't get that very often when you're talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that like this is one of the most important, not just graphic novels, not just comics, books.
Yeah.
Period books.
I would have to agree.
Oftentimes if you read like lists of like what are the greatest graphic novels of all time or the greatest comics of all time, like this is usually, if not one, in the top two. Like and because of its importance, and I will say, like, it's not an easy read.
No.
It is not at all. That's one of the reasons why it took me so long to get around to read
I read the first book on a Saturday, and I read the second book today after I got off work.
I can't imagine reading a whole, like I took it like a little bit at a time.
I read all of it at once. After I got finished with the first novel, I watched like probably 2 comedies back to back to get some sort of cleanse.
Like I would read a few pages, put it down. Yeah. Maybe later come back to it. Maybe try and read a few like 10, 15 pages.
The first book is it like the near the end of it's when it starts getting, because the second book starts in Auschwitz.
Yeah, that one's not, the first book is not quite as graphic, but there is this like anxiousness of, oh my God,
there's a build up to,
they're so close to getting caught. Oh my God, how are they going to survive? Like, because it's not just, it's them hiding, but it's also them like trying to escape and things like that. Well,
also the fact, another thing I think that like kind of like, makes you feel not as heavy with it as you're going through it, not just the back and forth, but that the father survived, so you can follow that story and know that there's something that happens there.
That to me is the triumph of the story, and that's why this is a very heavy book. This book does not depress me. If this had been like a story and then you find out that they went through all that suffering and no good came of it, then yes, this book would be completely depressing, and I would say never read this. But this is about the triumph of, through extreme hardships, the triumph of the human spirit, the triumph of memory. Vladek Spiegelman will never be forgotten.
Right.
Because with all they went through, he had a son, and his son had the wherewithal to get this story read to him and then disseminated in a way where, one, it could be told as frankly as it possibly could in a medium that normally does not go anywhere near anything like this with any kind of pathos or seriousness like this, like Mouse does. This story will live on.
Yeah.
You can't ban it all you fucking want. It will always be there. There will always be this story to tell, to show to people what inhumanity really looks like.
Yeah.
That's the victory of Mouse. That's the triumph of Mouse, is the fact that this will not be forgotten. This is a hallmark to the idea that that we can survive this and move forward and become better for it.
I think like this, like if there was one like graphic novel that you said this should be like required reading in like high school or something, like this is something that definitely should do that, I think. It probably never will happen, but at the very least, like we can, it needs to be in like libraries so that younger people can have access to it, because it is a very important story. Like I know I've introduced it. It's not something like it's easy for them. Like I've mentioned it to my daughter and my son, and like, hey, if you want to read it, you can. Because my daughter has been interested in like the World War II and like the Holocaust and stuff like that. Like they've talked about that in school. But it's not something it's not something I would like force her to read or anything like that.
Right, of course.
But if like she went to school and was like, and the teacher was like, okay, this is going to be required reading for this year, I'd be like, yes, of course, this needs to be told. It's a tough story, but it is like, it's an important story because it's one of those things where like history, like the first volume is called My Father Bleeds History, which I think is a very powerful statement.
Oh yeah.
And like, it needs to, I think it's important because it's one of those things that like tells a very stark and I think accurate story of things that don't often, we talk about the Holocaust is bad, but we don't really oftentimes talk about the individual
like goes through
the individual costs of
right.
Well, we talk about it in abstractions.
Yeah,
I think
like even Mouse is an abstraction,
right?
Because again, but the use of that metaphor again, it takes it back home to me. Like
the Diary of Anne Frank,
but
that's one story.
Yeah, we don't hear about what happened when Anne Frank was caught and sent to the death camp.
We hear everything up until that point.
But like it's one thing to say like 11 million people died, 6 million Jews died. Like those numbers human beings can't really comprehend, but to actually see like a personal story, even something like Schindler's List, it can be argued like it's more about Oscar Schindler than it is about like the actual human cost, to see like a more personal story of somebody who this is something that they went through. I think is very poignant. Like I said, we oftentimes abstract it so much that it's just we think about the number, but we don't actually think about the individual person. So yeah.
Ethan, you had some?
Yeah. I didn't really know what I was kind of like expecting going into this topic. I heard you guys talk about Mouse and how you guys didn't want to start off with it or in the middle, or you guys didn't really know where to place it. And just listening to you guys talk about it, I always get curious and I look it up myself. One of the things I always hear about is like adults complaining like, it's a comic book. Comic books are for kids, and like there's no way that this could be a medium for an adult to understand and like convey very much adult themes. And this is something I've never seen before. And with me, I don't really deal with like death and tragedy and in themes all that well. This is something that I kind of wish I had experience in like high school with what you guys were saying. Like this book is being banned. Schools, this isn't a required book for people to read and process. That this is, from what you guys are saying, this is a tale of what one man has gone through for a period of his life that he's never going to forget, and this is him having to go through himself to even regurgitate his tale to his son, and to even have his son convey his story. And
because there's several panels where he's getting really emotional about certain things.
And just from what you said, there's the panel of Art and his dad while he's pedaling on a bike and discussing whether or not his dad even wants him to make the book, and they're arguing back and forth like he doesn't want to tell the story, but Art's saying that this is a story that needs to be told. Like you don't really see.
And his second wife is another,
There's so much wrapped up in both volumes of this,
right?
Like we could almost do 2 episodes. Literally on each volume, just kind of like
That's
dissecting everything that's in this and this and this.
What I'm kind of wanting to say is like, this is something that I kind of wish I was exposed to, so that way I could understand.
It's not too late.
You can still read it.
Yeah.
I can understand like the themes of what one person has gone through when a lot of people marginalize one topic under one umbrella.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, like you said, when you start talking about numbers that are like unfathomable, like 11 million people, like 6 million people, it's
You talk about 50 of something, it already starts to like disassociating. And then but then go to 6 million, 11 million, 20 million, the people who died underneath Stalin, like things like that. You can't comprehend. You can't comprehend it because it's beyond a single human being's comprehension unless you take it solely to a soulless abstraction of numbers. This is all of that soul. This is all of that memory, not just in the time that it happened, but through over decades of reminiscing on it, over rethinking about it, like not just the person who lived it, but the person who's being told it, set against a backdrop of a father and son that were having significant issues because one blamed the other for the death of his mother. There's so much going on in Mouse that not just the major topic of the Holocaust, but just of personal relationships between fathers and sons, between mothers and fathers and sons.
Me and Brady were talking about the comic within the comic when they do the Planet Hell comic where
that's all Art Spiegelman trying to reconcile why his mother died.
Yeah. So now that we have thoroughly brought the mood super down, I guess we can go through if anybody has any like final.
I have 2 points on Mouse.
I'm sorry.
I have to get
apologize.
out. First thing is the initial publication for Mouse. The first was as a serialized comic strip in 1980.
Yeah.
And the first collection, known as Volume 1, is collected in 1986.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that correction out there, just make sure everybody... And also, for me, the reason why this is a triumph and the reason why I think this is a good thing and why I don't get depressed thinking about Mouse. In 1992... Mouse was the first graphic novel recognized for a Pulitzer Prize. To this day, 30 years later, it is still the only graphic novel to be recognized as a Pulitzer Prize. There is, not just for that, but it is another feather in a very featherful cap of why Mouse is one of the best works of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Period, full stop.
Yeah. Yeah, it even transcends the written thing, written or drawn. It's great.
Yeah.
I would say, if you feel like you can handle it, again, don't seek this out if it's something that you think might, really, we use this word a lot, but like trigger you in a way. But I don't think you will be a lesser person for have read it.
Right.
So yeah. Again,
I mean, like I'd have to like sort of like sound off of what Ethan's, he doesn't like reading about human suffering. That's was like, I wasn't depressed after I read it per se, but there was a lot of depressing things that happen.
Yeah,
because of the magnitude of everything that happens in those books are
reading
so large.
It, you can't. Yeah, that's why I don't get like depressed reading it, but like the weight of everything that happens with it kind of really hits you as you read it and after you read it, and it sticks with you, and it stays, and you it folds over in your mind, and that can be a very, very tough thing.
I'll take it from a more pointed aspect and just kind of maybe tie it in with what we've been talking about in whole tonight. Read it, challenge yourself. Comics are not just entertaining. They can be. Comics can educate, comics can inform, comics can move. We mentioned, again, we spent a great deal of time on Mouse, but going back to Sandman has a lot of I don't think to the extent, but Sandman handles on a lot of themes and a lot of human emotions that you do not see in regular comic books. Read the Sandman, read American Gods. If you like the weird, go look out for Metal Hurlant, heavy metal. Go look for things that you may not necessarily be comfortable with. It's not just spandex and flying. There is so much more in the medium of comics that transcends that baseness. And even inside that baseness, I think of things like Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. I think of, God, what was the name of it? Shoot. Oh,
a lot of the H.G. Wells stories have been turned into comic books too.
Yeah, there are tons of books that have been turned into comic books that we haven't talked about. I know a lot of the
literary
Jules Verne, H.G. Wells stuff.
The Maximum Ride series I talked about earlier.
That's a big thing.
A graphic novel.
We're gonna have missed something. I know somebody's gonna email us. Why didn't you talk about this?
Tale of Two Cities.
Well, we did miss Robot Chicken that one time.
I'm upset that y'all went off on Adult Swim and didn't mention Metalocalypse.
Well, we didn't go fully off on Adult Swim. That might be a topic for another show.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
very
future.
true.
Stay tuned with that.
So there you
go. So yeah, again, like we've thoroughly brought everything down, but yeah, I think Jay was pretty succinct with that. I think I want to leave this segment with, if I fuck it up, whatever. One of my favorite, one of the short kind of single issue parts of Sandman is Fear of Flying. And one of the quotes in that is Morpheus is talking about how sometimes when you climb, yes, sometimes you fall. And when you fall, sometimes you die. But sometimes when you fall, you fly. And I know I kind of butchered that quote, but it's been a little while since I've reread that particular issue. But I think that there are some very poignant things in that, and there are some very poignant things that you can get from comics. And I think we've kind of went on that. And yeah, if there's any of these that kind of tickle your fancy, please try them out. Read some issues, pick up a volume of them, and try them out. So yeah, that leads us to Ethan, do a funny thing for Whiskey and Wrestling, so to bring up the mood.
Do you like whiskey? Do you like wrestling? Join in with Jason Holder and Michael Hill for Whiskey and Wrestling. What goes on with WWE? What goes on with AEW? Tune in on Sundays normally. Whiskey and Wrestling.
I cracked a smile. Good job. You didn't get quite a chuckle, but that's good.
I made one person smile. My job is complete.
Jay, tell us about Fearology.
So there's this guy named J.L. Kite. He smells like used sandpaper and suicide girls. Not girls who committed suicide, but the Suicide Girls website, which is an adult site, 21 or over. Don't forget to
I don't think anybody's talked about the Suicide Girls in a
don't forget
very
to use
long
your
time.
Don't forget to use your dad's
At
credit
least
card,
10
because it'll
years.
be weird
There's a
if
lot
it
of
shows
them
up in your
still
mom's
doing
credit
stuff.
card.
Yeah.
But Jody, J.L. Kite, takes us through his history of horror, the things that have moved him horrifically. Horrifically. There we go. Maybe that
We're
one.
now on Twitter.
Yeah, we're now on Twitter.
Yeah. You got your shit together that quick.
Yeah,
Good job.
Yeah.
How is that $8?
Not having to pay $8 right now. They're still trying to figure that shit out.
That should be your
How
next
many
episode
people
of
have sent racist slurs to you?
Jesus.
Nobody.
Well, we better
Well,
get
let
right
them all
on
back
that,
on
yeah.
there.
I tweeted directly to Elon Musk.
Oh, and you're not banned yet. Good job.
But for one man's personal history of horror, as well as his horror opera. Can we call it a horror opera?
Yeah, you can call it that.
Horror opera?
A horror opera.
Horror
7 friendly
Opera?
sins by the
Is that one
Digital
better?
Devil.
No, that one's not better.
Opera. Okay, that's a reverb opera.
I will be uploading regularly on Mondays.
Oh, challenge yourself.
My next episode is going to be about atmospheric music and what it does in horror movies.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's interesting.
I'm all for that. I can't wait.
That is interesting.
But yes, to catch out on horror music created by the author himself and just his opinions on horror, as always, check out Jody's Fearology on Spotify and Anchor.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about a lot of graphic novels, comic books, and stuff like that. And some of these comic books have been made into movies or TV shows. So if you like movies and TV shows, try silence your cell phones. See, I fucked up the name, but I'm going to get the other names of the people right, and that's Jared Hubbard and Kevin Sheldon.
There you go.
That
piece of paper in front of you helped.
Yes. So if you like movies, if you like TV shows, listen to them. They go live on Wednesdays, I believe, on YouTube. Check them out. They're going to give you their opinions on like newer movies and things like that.
Both in the theater and in streaming.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I was hoping you were going to kick that one to me because I was going to call them Jeff Jarrett and Kurt Angle.
Ooh. That's a good one.
There we go.
Jody, tell us about Magnarb Gaming.
Magnarb Gaming, located in lovely Goshen, Mississippi, hosted by one
Lovely is a strong word.
Owned by one Greg Spanier, has a host of things for you to buy and do, such as board games.
What is it? Come in and find out.
Yeah, board games and chess.
They just got some new combat patrols for Warhammer 40K.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were new.
New fancy Dragon Shield Dungeon Master screens, as well as any of your RPG and card games.
And dungeon and player portfolios, which actually they
player
look very
portfolios.
Nice. They look very
nice. They've got exquisite sets of dice, very fancy premium dice, or not so fancy dice if you need dice. And they also have glue.
If you need D&D minis. They have glue.
They have glue.
They have glue.
That is not a lie.
You need glue for your miniatures.
You want super glue, or do you want glue to be used for basing material?
Or puzzles. They have glue for puzzles.
If you say so.
Or you Lloyd Bridges and regret the fact that you stopped sniffing glue this week. You could do that. No, don't do that. Don't sniff glue.
And you can also play games here. There's plenty of table space.
Yeah.
Magnarb Gaming. NarbyCon is coming up, isn't it, Jay?
NarbyCon, December 10th and 11th, Goshen, Mississippi, being hosted at the store and at the Goshen Community Center, where we'll be nonstop gaming until they kick us out.
It's too big for the one big area next door to McNarb, so we got to do bigger.
Yes. And so
that was a direct quote from Greg Spanier.
That is actually word for word. It got too big to be small, so now it's medium sized.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
And we do want to say this is going to come out after that, but a happy belated Thanksgiving to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
While you're giving thanks at this time, also remember that to be honest, a lot of the history that you learned about the first Thanksgiving is kind of BS. And just think about the sacrifices that a lot of people did for the modern world to come about, especially the Native Americans. And I wanted to kind of leave that on, and if anybody else wants to chip into with anything about this book that was written by a Native American man, Stephen Graham Jones. It's called The Only Good Indians. It's a horror book novel about a group of Native American Indians living on a reservation, and when they're younger, they do something bad, and something comes back to kind of haunt them in that, and it deals with like Native Americans living on a reservation, what happens to Native Americans who leave the reservation, and the consequences of your actions coming back to haunt you. It's a pretty good book. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, check that out. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So yeah,
sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Check it out. So if nobody has anything else, do we know what we're doing next week? No.
It's a chalkboard.
It's
a fiver.
Oh shit!
It's a fiver.
Oh shit!
And it's episode 35.
Episode 35.
Yeah. You can tell that I don't pay attention to what the numbers are.
Yeah.
I guess I'm hosting next
So
week.
it's gonna be a chalkboard. We'll eventually figure it out. You can, Kevin, if we do bad on this one, just send us an email and let us know.
There you go.
Kevin, I will take the bunt of your spiteful email.
The bunt.
The brunt.
Bunt.
Kevin doesn't bunt. He swings for the fences, motherfucker.
Exactly. If he's going out, he's striking out. That's how it is.
It's home run or strikeout. That's the only two things he has.
There
I
you
feel
go.
like Brady's trying to give Kevin like infinite feedback on this show. Just every.
I do. I am known to wear a bit right the fuck out. So we'll see. Was it like 6-7 times in this episode?
I lost count about that.
Let's try 8 next time.
Next week, it'll be written in air. I'm James McCarthy.
I'm Ethan Skinner.
I'm Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
The host has the last word.
Are you gonna hit the? You're not gonna hit
The
that.
host has the last word.
It
Then why
can't
did
rain
you-
all the time.
Why is that? Does it have to be like that?
It doesn't have to. I mean, you are the host. You could say no.
Well, you could like anytime that I'm talking, you.